There are places in this world where logic fails, where science turns silent and even the bravest minds dare not look too closely. In the shadows of our understanding, strange phenomena unfold, voices from empty rooms, rain that never should fall, reflections that move on their own. These are not stories from ancient myth, but accounts whispered by those who lived them, and were never the same again. Welcome to the Unexplained. The vanishing of Flight 93B. The morning of October 17, 2007, began like any other at Spruce Point Airfield, a small but busy private airport on the coast of Washington state. A sleek twin-engine jet, a Falcon 50 with tail number N93BR, was cleared for takeoff at 8:14 a.m. Aboard were 5 individuals: pilot Alan Cray, co-pilot Marlene Duval, and 3 passengers: hedge fund executive Marcus Fenn, his assistant Cheryl Rowe, and tech entrepreneur Dr. Glenn Horvath. Their flight plan was filed for a routine 4-hour journey to Anchorage, Alaska. Weather conditions were clear, the aircraft was recently serviced, and there were no irregularities during pre-flight checks. For the first 2 hours, air traffic control logged standard communications. Then, without warning, all contact ceased. Flight 93B dropped off radar screens 180 miles off the Alaskan coastline. There was no mayday, no transponder signal, no evidence of sudden descent. Just silence. Search and rescue teams launched a massive operation that spanned 10 days, sweeping over 2,000 square miles of icy ocean and rugged wilderness. Not a single piece of debris, not an oil slick, not even a torn seat cushion was recovered. The families were devastated. Investigators, baffled. Eventually, the incident was classified as a probable crash, and the passengers were declared legally dead. Life, for the rest of the world, moved on. Then, 12 years later, something impossible happened. On June 2, 2019, a Russian weather satellite captured a brief, unexplained aircraft signature in eastern Siberia, near the uninhabited region of the Verkhoyansk Range. The data was routed to meteorological servers and, oddly, flagged by an AI system at a private aerospace firm monitoring for illegal air traffic. The signature matched the tail number N93BR. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch or misread. But a second satellite, operated by the Japanese space agency JAXA, confirmed the same tail number and radar signature. A private Russian search team was dispatched to the coordinates, an unremarkable plateau surrounded by thick permafrost and boreal forest. They arrived 4 days later and found a sight that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. There, nestled against a narrow strip of frozen tundra, was the Falcon 50. Intact. No crash damage. Frost covered the windows, and the aircraft door was sealed shut. The team forced it open, expecting a scene of long-dead passengers. What they found instead was more disturbing. The cabin was empty. No bodies. No signs of struggle. Food wrappers on the seats. A tablet on the co-pilot's console showed an unfinished Sudoku puzzle. The onboard clock read 10:42 a.m., just 2.5 hours after takeoff time from 12 years earlier. Even more unnerving, the coffee in the cockpit's thermos was still warm. The interior temperature was 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Russian authorities quickly seized control of the site. When U.S. officials requested access, citing the aircraft's origin and registry, they were met with diplomatic silence. 3 days later, the plane was transported via military cargo helicopter to an undisclosed location. It should have ended there. But it didn't. 2 members of the Russian search team independently leaked photos from the cabin, images of the untouched controls, a GPS display still locked on the original Anchorage route, and most shockingly, a flight recorder showing 3 hours and 17 minutes of log time, matching the 2007 flight. Meanwhile, one of the satellite companies received an anonymous data dump, high-resolution video from the Falcon's external cameras. The footage showed pristine skies, calm ocean below, and then, just as the jet reached the last known radar contact point, a shimmer in the clouds, like a curtain of silver light. As the plane passed through it, the camera feed cut out. The footage ended there. Journalists attempted to contact the families of the missing passengers. Some refused to speak. Others were willing to talk, and their stories added a new, unsettling layer. Cheryl Rowe's mother claimed she received a voicemail from her daughter's phone the day after the satellite footage was taken. It was only static, punctuated by the faint hum of engine noise. When she played the message for reporters, a low male voice could be heard whispering something unintelligible. Audio engineers enhanced it. The phrase was, "We never left." Dr. Horvath's former business partner said he received an email from Glenn's old account that simply read, "Time is broken." The sender's IP address traced back to a defunct satellite relay in northern Greenland, one no longer in operation. The U.S. government denied all knowledge of the plane's reappearance. Russia made no further statements. The search team vanished from public life. One member was found dead a year later in what was officially deemed a suicide, though no note was found. Theories spread rapidly. Some said the aircraft passed through a temporal rift. Others blamed secret military experiments, wormholes, or contact with an unknown intelligence. Skeptics dismissed it as a hoax. But the footage, the plane logs, and the corroborated satellite data remain unexplained. Aviation experts reviewed the Falcon's engine logs and found something chilling. The engines recorded continuous operation with no shutoff for over 12 years. Somehow, the plane had been in motion the entire time, yet never needed fuel, maintenance, or human control. Time, for Flight 93B, had apparently frozen. Today, no one knows where the aircraft is. Some say it was dismantled and hidden in a black site. Others claim it disappeared a second time before it could be fully examined. Regardless, Flight 93B is now a ghost in aviation records, neither fully lost nor fully found. Pilots still flying over the Gulf of Alaska report occasional radar blips that vanish without explanation. A few swear they've seen a sleek white jet flying silently above the clouds, its tail number partially visible in the sun. The forest that hums. They call it Soapta Verde, the whispering green. A stretch of forestland tucked deep in the Carpathian Mountains, almost untouched by civilization. Though it appears on topographic maps, the Romanian government has never officially designated it as a park, preserve, or region of interest. It's simply there. Locals from nearby villages avoid it. Not out of superstition, they insist, but from something deeper, an instinct they cannot explain. The first modern report that drew attention came in 2014, from a German hiker named Udo Klein. An amateur geologist, Klein ventured into the forest with audio recording equipment, searching for underground mineral sounds or seismic activity. 2 days later, he returned to his hostel in Brasov pale, quiet, and unwell. He left Romania the next day and refused to speak to the press, but his personal blog, deleted shortly afterward, contained a single entry, "The ground sings when you sleep." Soon after, a small collective of paranormal researchers from Bucharest traveled to the area, intrigued by the cryptic post. They spent 3 nights camping at the edge of the forest, avoiding the dense inner grove that locals warned against. They captured faint, rhythmic humming during the early hours of the morning, deep, sustained tones that fluctuated between frequencies. Like breathing, they said. Like something enormous lying just beneath the earth. The recordings were uploaded and studied by audio specialists. Some dismissed them as wind patterns interacting with the natural acoustics of the forest floor. Others noticed something stranger. Buried within the hum, at regular intervals, were what appeared to be harmonic patterns resembling structured sound, almost musical, yet alien. One spectrogram analysis displayed a shape that mimicked the Fibonacci spiral. Another resembled a double helix. In 2018, the phenomenon reached wider awareness when Dr. Lara Benkoff, a well-known Eastern European physicist and skeptic of paranormal claims, announced a solo expedition to Soapta Verde to debunk what she called woodland myths born of boredom. Equipped with seismic sensors, electromagnetic detectors, and high-fidelity audio gear, she entered the forest with the goal of spending 5 days inside. She had satellite GPS tracking and a daily check-in protocol. Her last message, sent on day 2, simply read, "Something is singing under the trees. It's not wind." When Dr. Benkoff missed her day 3 check-in, a search was mounted. They found her on the 6th day, barely conscious, curled up in the center of a perfectly circular clearing that didn't exist on any satellite maps. Her gear was scattered, most of it non-functional. Her GPS tracker was fused, as though exposed to high temperatures, though her body showed no burns. She was taken to a hospital in Cluj-Napoca. Doctors said she was physically unharmed, but she did not speak for several weeks. When she finally did, she muttered in a language no one could identify. Linguists described it as having structural elements similar to Old Church Slavonic, but with inflections found in Sanskrit and Basque. Her family claimed she spoke in her sleep, saying things like, "the mouth beneath us," and "the roots that remember." She never returned to her work. After that, the Romanian government fenced off the main trails leading towards Soapta Verde, citing environmental protection. Unofficial reports claim military personnel were seen establishing a perimeter, but no official explanation was given. Independent hikers still attempt to breach the forest. Some return uneventfully. Others report a feeling of being watched, or of walking for hours only to find themselves back where they started. A French backpacker claimed his compass spun erratically and his watch jumped ahead by 5 hours while he stood still. When he left the forest, his GoPro footage was blank for a full 22-minute segment during which he insisted he never stopped recording. In 2020, a team of international scientists quietly attempted to study the area again, this time with a research balloon that would fly over and record from above. The balloon entered the airspace at 3,000 feet. 17 minutes later, all telemetry was lost. The balloon was later found, shredded and grounded 10 kilometers away, its black box intact but filled only with blank, static audio. The most unnerving evidence came not from the forest itself, but from the surrounding villages. An elderly woman in the village of Dumănești told researchers that every time someone enters the forest and doesn't come back, the trees hum louder at night. She claims it has always been this way. She says the earth below the forest isn't soil, but something older, buried beneath the roots. "A mouth," she said. "And it sings to call us home." In a strange coincidence, several ancient Dacian artifacts were discovered near the outer forest during unrelated archaeological digs. Many of the stone fragments bore carvings of spirals and concentric rings, as well as humanoid figures with open mouths pointed toward the sky. The forest appears in several pre-Christian Dacian myths as a place where the sky and earth become one, and a being called Stravechiel Suspin, the ancient Sai, dwells. Modern spiritualists have taken to calling it a thin place, where reality wears thin and other planes might intersect with ours. Others believe it's a point of magnetic or geological significance, a resonance pocket where vibrations from the planet are amplified. But none of these theories explain the voices, or why people report hearing their own names whispered among the hums. In the end, the forest continues to hum. Only a few brave or reckless individuals still attempt to understand it. Most stay far away, listening from a distance when the wind carries the sound. Because when it hums, the ground does more than sing. It listens. The Rain of Black Feathers. It began at 4:47 a.m. on August 3, 2014, in the small Scottish village of Eldenbrook, a quiet settlement tucked between rolling hills and the edge of Loch Tyne. Locals awoke to an eerie silence, the usual morning birdsong absent, the wind completely still. Then came the feathers. Black. Silky. Hundreds of them at first, drifting gently down from a cloudless sky. Within minutes, it became thousands. They fell over rooftops, along narrow cobbled streets, across farmlands and gardens. No flocks were seen above. No sound accompanied them, not even the hush of descent. Just a silent, continuous fall, like snow that carried no weight. By 5:30 a.m., the entire village was blanketed. Livestock grew anxious, several dogs reportedly howled without reason, and power flickered throughout the southern quarter. People gathered in the village square in stunned silence, many of them barefoot, clutching umbrellas or kitchen towels over their heads. Some cried. Others simply stared upward, waiting for an explanation that never came. Then, at exactly 6:01 a.m., the feathers stopped. The sky remained clear. The sun crept over the hills, illuminating the blackened fields and thatch roofs now coated in the impossible. People began collecting the feathers, trying to understand what they were. They were slightly oily to the touch, light as air, yet strangely resistant to flame. refusing to catch fire even under a direct light or flame. A few villagers took them into nearby Inverness for testing. A local ornithologist, Dr. Malcolm Price, was the first to raise the alarm. He had never seen feathers like them. Structurally, they lacked the typical barbs and shaft stiffness common in avian biology. Under a microscope, each feather revealed a hexagonal pattern too uniform to be natural. More concerning, they tested high for trace metals, especially iron, and something stranger, carbon nanotubes. Lab-grade. Synthetic. And yet, the feathers looked organic. The government soon stepped in. By August 5, a research team had arrived from Edinburgh, citing environmental concerns. The feathers were confiscated. Residents were told it was a freak meteorological event, an atmospheric discharge picking up loose feathers from an unknown bird flock or industrial source. But the villagers didn't believe that. Because of the dreams. Beginning that same night, dozens of Eldenbrook residents reported identical nightmares. In them, they stood alone on a vast plain made of mirrors, unable to see their reflections. Above them hovered a dark mass, shifting like smoke, faceless but immense. It watched them. They could feel its gaze without eyes. Then it would speak. Not in words but in feeling. A pressure in the chest. A sound without sound. One sentiment echoed among all who dreamed. You have been marked. By August 10, more than 60 people had filed statements with the village council, all describing variations of the same dream. The youngest was 8 years old. The oldest, 92. People began avoiding sleep. Anxiety soared. 2 elderly residents reportedly wandered into the hills one night and were later found unconscious beside a circle of feathers that hadn't been there the day before. Paranormal researchers took interest. One, Henry Kellerman, managed to secure a single feather sample that had been kept hidden by a villager. He conducted an amateur EM scan and claimed the feather emitted a low-frequency pulse every 43 seconds. When submerged in water, the pulse intensified. Before he could publish his findings, Kellerman disappeared. His car was found on the side of a highway just outside of Glasgow. The engine was still running. Inside was his laptop, melted from the inside out, and a pile of black feathers arranged in a spiral on the passenger seat. There was no sign of him. The government issued no further statements. Researchers left Eldenbrook, and most of the collected feathers were never returned. The villagers were urged not to speak to the press, citing national interest. But in secret, stories continued to pass between locals. A farmer claimed his cows gave birth to malformed calves weeks after the rain. Another family said their baby would cry every time a black bird flew overhead. An elderly woman went blind one morning. No trauma, no disease, just darkness. Her last words before retreating into silence were, "I saw the shape in the sun." As time passed, the dreams began to fade, but never fully vanished. Once a year, on the anniversary of the featherfall, some villagers still report the same dream returning. The plain of mirrors. The sky that watches. The pressure. The feeling of being observed, evaluated. In 2017, an independent journalist, Riley March, interviewed several Eldenbrook residents and published a short documentary online. It was taken down within 48 hours due to classified imagery. March was later charged with violating a UK government non-disclosure directive. She had only one thing to say to reporters outside the courthouse. They didn't fall. They were dropped. To this day, no other town has experienced the phenomenon. But in 2022, a hiker in the Highlands claimed to find a feather identical to those from Eldenbrook, resting atop a cairn miles from any village. When he picked it up, his smartwatch stopped working, and his phone's GPS pinned his location at 0 longitude and 0 latitude for exactly 7 minutes. The hiker later posted online, "I think it knows where I am now." The original explanation remains in official documents: anomalous meteorological event. No foul play. No further investigation required. But the people of Eldenbrook remember. And every year, when August comes, they listen for the silence before the fall. The echoes of apartment 6C. In the heart of downtown Dresden, Germany, sits a concrete monolith from the late 1960s, an aging apartment block slated for demolition. Stark, gray, and nearly empty, it once housed dozens of working-class families during the height of the Cold War. Over the years, its tenants dwindled, moving on to better places, quieter lives. But one unit, apartment 6C, remained a subject of whispered speculation long after the building had emptied. For decades, stories circulated of strange occurrences behind its door, lights flickering at odd hours, sounds of crying when no one lived there, and most infamously, the incident with the Henschels. In 1994, the Henschel family, Martin, his wife Clara, and their 6-year-old daughter Elsie, moved into 6C. The rent was cheap, and they needed a fresh start. But within weeks, they began noticing small anomalies. The taps would run red for a few seconds before clearing. The TV would turn on at 3:33 a.m., always on a static-filled channel that emitted faint whispers. Objects would move, a lamp found upside down, a kitchen chair set neatly on the balcony, toys laid out in strange geometric patterns. Martin, a rational man, blamed electrical faults and overactive imagination. Clara, increasingly unsettled, insisted something was wrong with the apartment. Elsie, quiet and observant, said the walls talked when everyone slept. She often asked her parents what the man in the mirror wanted. Then one night in January 1995, the family vanished. No signs of forced entry. The front door was bolted from the inside. Breakfast was half prepared on the stove. Elsie's coat lay near the front door, one sleeve turned inside out. Authorities investigated thoroughly, suspecting a well-orchestrated disappearance or abduction. But there were no leads, no fingerprints but their own. The building's surveillance system had failed that night, capturing only an hour of looping footage, a flickering hallway light, and what looked like a shadow standing still at the end of the corridor for 7 hours. No one moved into 6C after that. The building itself grew quieter, and by 2010, only a few residents remained. One of them, an elderly woman named Mrs. Leaner, claimed she still heard the child's voice at night, singing lullabies in reverse. She would place her hearing aid against the wall that bordered 6C and weep, saying, "She's still in there. Still trying to get out." In 2016, a documentary crew was granted access to the building ahead of its demolition. Drawn by urban legends, they set up cameras in several rooms, one of them in 6C. The footage they recorded was never aired, but leaked clips surfaced briefly on an obscure horror forum before being scrubbed. The most chilling segment showed a static feed of the living room, empty, save for dust motes in the light. At 2:11 a.m., a blurry figure passed across the screen. Small, child-sized, humming. The audio track distorted, then went silent for exactly 33 seconds. When the sound returned, the microphone picked up a voice, low, gravelly, whispering in a strange dialect. Analysts say it sounded like a mixture of Old German and Romanian. Translated, it said, "The echo has shape. The shape has hunger." Shortly after filming, one of the cameramen, Lucas Bauer, was hospitalized with severe auditory hallucinations. He claimed he could hear tapping behind every wall, even in the hospital. He said something was learning to mimic voices. Lucas disappeared a month after being discharged. His apartment was found with every mirror shattered and hundreds of pages taped to the walls, sketches of eyes, doorways, and a symbol resembling an infinity loop broken at one end. The demolition of the building was quietly delayed. Officials cited asbestos complications, but rumors spread that construction workers refused to enter after discovering deep scratches behind the wallpaper of 6C, long, deliberate gouges that traced the outline of a humanoid figure, repeated again and again. Then came the sounds. During one inspection, an engineer left a recording device overnight in the unit. The next morning, he returned to find the tape filled with hours of silence, and then a sudden burst of sound, screaming, but not human. Mechanical. Rhythmic. A loop of what sounded like a woman saying, "It remembers what we forgot," followed by static that formed a pattern when converted to a spectrogram. The pattern looked like a floor plan. Not of the apartment, but of a circular structure, deep underground. In 2021, a government team sealed off the building entirely. No reason was made public. When asked about apartment 6C, city officials claimed no such unit ever existed. In the updated building registry, the sixth floor was listed as having only 4 units: 6A, 6B, 6D, and 6E. 6C, it seems, had been erased. But some remember. Former tenants of the building speak in hushed tones about hearing voices when walking past that particular door. Some say if you knock 3 times, the door knocks back. Others claim the door has no handle from the inside. Most disturbingly, on the night of every January 17th, the anniversary of the Henschels' disappearance, a dull red light can be seen glowing faintly through the curtains of the long-abandoned window of 6C. No power runs to the building anymore. The demolition has yet to be completed. The lot is fenced. A warning sign reads, "Hazardous materials. Do not enter." But once a year, someone leaves a child's toy at the base of the fence. A stuffed bear, or a doll, always facing upward, as though waiting for someone to look out from above. To this day, no one knows what happened to the Henschels. But if you press your ear to the east wall of apartment 6C, and wait long enough, they say you can hear a child humming. Backwards. The lake that never warms. In the remote northern stretch of Canada's Yukon Territory, buried between frost-bitten pine forests and jagged ridgelines, lies a lake known only to the few who dare to speak of it, Lac de Mort Silencieux, the Lake of Silent Death. It doesn't appear on any current map. Its coordinates are passed by word of mouth among trappers and backwoods survivalists, always with a warning: don't go near it. Don't touch the water. Don't listen. The lake sits in a circular depression with no apparent inlet or outlet. It does not freeze, even in the dead of winter. And no matter the season, no matter the weather, the water remains ice cold, within 2 degrees of freezing. Always. The first documented reference to the lake appears in an 1871 journal by French fur trader Étienne Marchand. In it, he describes a black mirror nestled in the belly of the earth, where the air tastes like metal and the animals will not tread. His final entry ends with a scrawl: "It knows my name." Marchand was never seen again. In 1953, a U.S. military reconnaissance flight en route to Alaska veered slightly off course and spotted the lake from above. Curious about its perfectly circular shape, the Air Force sent a small survey team under the guise of a geological research mission. Only one member returned, Sergeant Walter H. Pike. His report was sealed. But years later, his grandson, a journalist, found his grandfather's medical records. Pike returned blind. Doctors found no damage to the optic nerves. His eyes were intact. Yet he claimed the world had gone black the moment he approached the water. "It showed me something," he said. "Something inside itself." His final days were spent locked in a psychiatric hospital, scratching circles onto the walls and mumbling a single phrase: "Under the stillness, it waits." In the decades that followed, scattered accounts emerged. Stories of hikers who wandered too far and returned changed. In 1979, a group of anthropology students from the University of British Columbia attempted to locate the lake to study rumored indigenous legends tied to the land. They documented their trip in a journal. The last few pages were soaked through, but readable. One student, Melanie, wrote, "We didn't find birds today. Or insects. The forest is silent. The compass spun. Alan heard voices in the wind. Said they were in the water. I think the lake is listening." The journal was found tied to a tree with rawhide. The students were never found. According to oral legends from the local Vuntut Gwich'in people, the lake is a forbidden place, Tlaa Zika, where shadows drink. It's said to be a remnant of a time before time, when things older than gods crawled beneath the skin of the world. They believe the lake is a scar, a wound that still bleeds darkness. Modern science, of course, dismisses such notions. But in 1998, a geologist named Howard Eames went rogue from an academic expedition and made his way to the lake alone. His notes, recovered later from his abandoned tent, included a chilling observation. Despite the air temperature being -12 degrees Celsius, the surface of the lake was exactly 0.3 degrees Celsius. The water, he noted, never moved. Not even when wind passed over it. It's like glass that breathes, he wrote. His final entry read, "Heard my mother's voice from beneath. She died 20 years ago." Eames' body was never found. But a week after he vanished, his sat phone sent out a single GPS ping from the center of the lake. Then it shut off forever. In 2011, an independent satellite imaging firm captured thermal data of the area. The lake appeared as a cold void, but the surrounding terrain showed unusual heat signatures, specifically, ring-shaped anomalies radiating from the lake in consistent intervals. Like pulses. Some researchers called it geological. Others said it resembled a heartbeat. A few months later, a YouTube survivalist who went by the name Timberghost posted a video claiming he had found the lake. He appeared on camera visibly shaken, speaking in a whisper. "It was like the whole world stopped when I got there. No birds. No wind. My own breath sounded too loud. And the water." He trailed off. Then he showed a bottle filled with the lake's water. It was perfectly clear, but tiny particles floated within it, shifting slowly, almost rhythmically, like plankton. But when he held a magnet next to the glass, the particles clustered toward it. Within 48 hours, the video was removed. Timberghost's channel was wiped clean. Viewers who downloaded the footage said the final few frames contained a flicker of something unnatural, a figure reflected in the water behind him, tall and motionless, with no face. Just a mouth. In 2019, an anonymous whistleblower uploaded what appeared to be internal documents from a defunct Canadian intelligence agency. One document described Zone 0 MK, a restricted area marked by non-biological cognition signals. Another warned, direct exposure to the lake correlates with auditory hallucinations and visual distortions. Witnesses describe seeing events that never occurred. The last line read, "Subject believes the lake remembers the future." The location remains unknown to the public. GPS systems often glitch in the surrounding area. Maps correct themselves. Paths vanish. It's as though the lake refuses to be found. But still, it calls. The few who claim to have stood before it say that if you stare long enough, the surface begins to ripple, not from wind or disturbance, but from something deeper. As if something beneath is stirring, watching, mimicking. Some say if you lean in close, just above the water, you will see your reflection blink before you do. And then it will smile.